That's the only one we have.
Yeah.
So,
Just give me the right answer. No.
all right, I heard the magic words.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Town Meeting Finance Committee, special meeting agenda is for our budget, call order 6:02. Representatives Ritchie, Norman, Gardner, Pulaski, Umbris, and Powers are present. Senator Shinrod is not with us at the moment. She has an excused absence if she's not here. Our new business tonight is going to be 3.1 2025-347, the RTM Finance Committee FY 2026 proposed budget review. We're on, this is a continuation of our first meeting. First account will be with Director Green. It's found on page 78, account number 1012, Human Resources. I'll ask Director Green to give us a brief overview of that account, please.
Good evening, hello, a year later. Hi.
How you doing?
Hey,
So the
good.
first one you're gonna do is 10-12.
Yes.
We already did 105 and 003.
Yeah, you didn't pull up we did those two out last week.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, just for
But
myself.
we have
Okay, so we're starting.
a new agenda that's been printed, but yes.
Right.
Page 78 out.
Still the same
It's the same
list,
idea.
it's just we're starting partly.
Did you make up a sheet that has the page number?
No.
So.
I just always go by
I can tell you, we're on page 78.
the front page of the book has all these.
I'll give you the page number every time.
Yeah.
That works.
And if you forget to like. Good, all right, so we're gonna get started.
Thank you.
And I don't have a huge increase here, actually. The majority of it is typical of salaries.
Yes.
The amount that's not salaries for operating expenses is $3,000,645. In my estimation, not a huge amount. However, I will say the majority of that, I added a couple of thousand on there because we're seeing a slight uptick in tuition reimbursement, which is required under employee contracts as well as the non-union terms and conditions. And then the other 1,600 is spread out for just different increases that are happening. Primarily, we run into the background test and the drug testing, always have an increase for providers.
Do you have any questions? Or just one question? On page 79, we're talking about collective bargaining agreements. We need money, or are we gonna need legal to do more or less?
We are starting with 4 of the 5 that we have settled. And we've anticipated some increase. Obviously, it's not public discussion what we're going to negotiate at, but I think we're gonna be in a fair range, and that's been accounted for throughout the budget.
Okay, that's what I want to
Okay.
know. It is accounted. Thank
Yes,
you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Very good.
Could I?
Yeah.
I just asked, I was catching up on, I just like make notes when we're going along, but you made, there were 2 changes to this budget. Is that what you're saying?
I did say that there's an increase of $1,645 that is outside of salary. And the majority of that increase is for a rise I'm seeing in tuition reimbursement, which is a required benefit under our union contracts as well as the non-union terms and conditions. And then the last 1,600 or so is taken into account of everything rising up every year, but we always get a notice that physicals are going to be rising. Our physical provider can cost every year.
So these are minor, small amounts in total.
I would say it is a minor, small amount in this deal. Yeah. You're welcome.
Representative Umbers, any questions?
No, sir, no questions.
Thank you. Take a motion to move this number, please. $521,114.
So moved.
One second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? $521,000.
I just wanna make sure I heard right.
$521,114. I didn't think, if I said 5,000, I'm sorry. I'm on the
Okay.
record as not being correct. Thank you for correcting me.
Just in
That's what I
case,
said.
just in
No,
case.
you're right. Okay, on to our next category. On page 84, it's account number 1070. Insurance and claims. There's a decrease in this budget. I'll let Director Green talk to the decrease.
Yes, we're in year 2 of 3 where we're reallocating some of the cost of the risk insurance to the Board of Ed for the schools that they took possession of. And it was 10% over 3 years. So this is the second year. So we saved about, I want to say 90,000 or so because of that. So there's a big decrease there. And then we had a little bit of a savings because last year we did 13% estimation from our not provider, I would say our broker as a suggestion. And some of them, we came in a little bit under that percentage. So there was a little savings there of why you see a difference between the yearly cost. I did take the opportunity to make 2 adjustments in unemployment and also in the claims portion. Typically, they've been budgeted at 25,000 for years. And with unemployment, we are self-pay. So if someone leaves us on their own free will and they're not at their next job long enough, we have to pay. So we've run into that a couple of times where it can rise our bill. And then I put 5,000 extra there, and then I also put an extra 5,000 under the risk claims because we've seen some activity there. So I want to be sure we're putting a little bit of cushion in.
Do you have any questions for Director Green?
Can you say more about what the risk claims are? What that?
Probably not.
Okay, that's fine.
There's claims that just come up and we have to defend them, an attorney gets assigned to them.
Okay.
And it can be something like a slip and fall, or it could be something like a claim against the, so it can really vary, so I wanna be
Various
careful.
Liabilities.
Yeah.
What I'm saying in that, but I've seen an uptick, I'll say, just in the risks in general, the interactions that we're having, so I wanna make sure that we're putting a cushion there because it's been 25,000 for a long time. And most of our deductibles are at 25, so we're spending down from 25. So if there's many going on, we might have 3,000 here, 6,000 here, 15 here, 2 here. Thank goodness we're not hitting 25 and everything, but
Right.
we want to make sure that we
It could be a
have enough.
contingency there.
I noticed that the drone projected versus budget is 5x what you thought it was going to be. Did something weird happen there?
Oh, there was a new drone added into one of the departments.
Not a
It was
particularly
very
risky
high
drone.
tech drone,
Okay.
much
so-
more than the existing ones, yeah. So that was a notable increase, I guess.
Well, that's good to know.
Got the fancy
I'm
drone.
sure we know which department that is.
I don't know if that's. I want to be in the interest of everybody's health and safety and well-being in the town. I don't want to say, I don't know if that's super public.
We just keep it as a confidential item and we'll leave it at that, okay? Okay,
This is just a question because I'm a little confused. You said we saved money, but actually we really didn't save any money. We just moved the budget item over to the Board of Ed. Is that what happened?
I'm speaking for this budget, we saved money, which is
Yes,
separate.
well,
from the
you,
Board of Ed,
you
yes.
became less, but the town saved no money.
I'm here representing 1070, so
I
1070
understand,
didn't
I
save
understand.
money.
You lowered your budget item.
Lowering
I
the
just
budget to
wanna-
me is saving money, but I guess it's however you want to look at it.
Well, it's, you know, if I have 2 bottles of water and I dump some over here and say, see, I drank all this water.
That is
My
true,
time.
so I can move something over and then what they do on that side is for their concern, I can't.
Yeah,
dictate
I
that.
understand, it's just from my understanding.
Got it.
I think that, and I'm gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, because we share certain accounts and items with the Board of Ed when it comes to types of liabilities, such as insurance claims, premiums and things like that. So and correct me if I'm wrong, that's where we see this balancing act go on, where we take from one and put it over here so that they're covered with what they need to pay back what we have for liabilities. It may be wrong, but that's,
It
It's
may
just
be a sensible way to do it, it's just that it's going to look like an increase in the school budget when the school did not spend any more money than they did. It's
Well-
going to look like a saving here when the town didn't spend any less money than it did.
I
And
will
it's good to
say-
understand what's going on.
I will say it's been reallocated to where the responsibility lies. It's been a correction because in the past, maybe it wasn't that way. But if you prefer, you could say the money was shifted, however you prefer, because I
Yeah.
understand at the end of the day.
Well, at the
We're
end
all
of the day,
paid.
what's going to
Yeah.
happen is what we always do. Somehow we seem to shove the expenses into the school budget and then we beat up on the Board of Education
Well, I
for
think,
something that they,
I'm going to say we're getting
and
a
they have
little,
enough reasons to be beat up on.
if I could say we're getting a little off topic
Yeah, we're
here,
not.
and
It
I
is a
wouldn't,
bit.
and I
the
wouldn't
Board of Ed
say
budget is a whole different budget than this.
beating
Oh,
up
yes,
is a
it is.
very,
It's an aggressive word.
it's a word that I
We don't
wouldn't
beat up
use.
on anyone.
We're reallocating to where the expense belongs and where the responsibility belongs. We're not shoving anything for anybody, so I take umbrage with that. I'm not shoving anything.
Okay, I will use kinder words.
It's a responsibility that is being allocated where it is, and I'm sure everybody looks to place it appropriately, even from an
Well,
auditing
I'm still
perspective.
feeling a little sore in the ears over the nurses thing, which was also.
Again,
a-
outside of
you know,
1070, so I can't speak to that. And
I
don't-
know, but I mean,
I am,
there's a pattern here.
I can tell you for 1070, this is the responsibility of
I'm
the,
good with what you did,
Yes,
I just wanna
okay.
be sure I understand what you did.
And you said it's 10% a year. Okay,
so this is year 2, I believe there's one more to go.
okay, and so it's about 90K each year.
Yeah, I have it,
Will get
yeah, it's been
shifted from this budget towards the board budget.
97,000 lower, yeah, so it would have been more. And you will often see a good percentage here of at least 10% because everything goes up, especially the risk insurance. But yes, there's been some allocation and there was discussions that happened a couple of years ago once the schools were complete to put it where it actually.
So it's like, it was 97 this year that got moved over, that when you're saying 10%, you're also saying you're both gonna move 10% over and it's a 10% increase?
No,
Okay.
from a property perspective,
Yeah.
so we share property, we share different types of risks, so it's
Yeah.
only property that we're looking at for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
actual buildings. And let's say it was 60 for us and 40 for them, now it's 50 and 50. And it'll be 40 and 60, so in that way.
And then we're self-insured, so that makes all the reason for where we're categorizing what we're doing. So that, you know, the number really hasn't changed, it's gonna go up because it's liability insurance. Insurance doesn't normally go down, certain things maybe, but
Mhm.
all in all, it's not gonna ever be receding to the point where you're going to
Mhm.
notice large chunks of money coming back out of those funds.
Typically not,
Unless everybody, you know, we get the cure for cancer or something, and you know.
that would be nice.
Right, it's just,
And I
Anyway.
understand the clarifying question, I just wanna be mindful that we're being respectful, we're sticking to this topic, and we're
correct.
not mischaracterizing intent or anything like that.
And just to be clear, nothing has been allocated to the education budget that doesn't belong in the.
This is the only thing that I have responsibility for of moving in 1070, and this was a conversation upper echelons and an agreement because it is correct.
Thank you for that. We put some notation as to the discussion. I'm sure it will be discussed.
Well, I'm sure it will be too, so that's why the place to bring it up is here. I think to have the correct wording here before we get it before the whole RTM.
Well, my wording may be different than yours, and
No, I'm not the one that's going to be reporting, I'm going to be
oh, I
sitting
see.
there voting.
Okay,
You're gonna be the one
correct.
reporting.
Yeah. And there has been a reduction, but it's a factual.
Okay, do we have any further questions? Representative Umbris, do you have a question at all?
No, sir.
Representative Fritchie?
No question.
Representative Garden, you good?
Good.
Norman, any second, Michael again?
Okay.
Lieutenant Pulaski?
No, that's the only question
Okay.
I have. I
So
would like to know where things get less, maybe somebody else.
I'll take a motion to move the number. $947,895, correct?
So moved.
Second. Vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we're on to page 88. Account 1071. Self-funded plan. Green, if we can just go briefly over this cost center, if there's an increase.
Smaller increase than in the past, which I'm glad to say. For our retirement accounts, you have a chart there that shows the actuarial assumption percentage. It's been reduced for a couple of years. We still are funded, I want to say around 79% pension, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty good. Yeah.
Great, yeah. Well, we can't do everything. Okay.
It's trending in the right
Asking for
direction, I would say.
miracles, okay, miracles on that one.
Last year, it was 78.7% for our reporting, and now it's 79. So obviously, there's fluctuations in the stock market. So I think it's good, at least we're holding fairly steady with a tiny increase there. Health insurance, Anthem provided a trend of 8%. The renewal was pretty late this year. They're starting things a lot later. We're just gonna have to anticipate that next year. And we put a trend in of about 6% because we knew it was going down. And I think the other item to share, the change since I saw you guys last time, is that Anthem has stopped offering in the group insurance market some of the older products that they had, like high option plan 80, et cetera, that are maybe the 80s, 70s at this point. So what's available is Medicare Advantage. So we were in the process of offering Medicare Advantage to our over 65 retirees over the year, and a big chunk of people moved on. But now you'll see that there's about 171, which is quite a large number. That's because that's all that's left. But we still have the best Medicare Advantage plan possible, which is a fun. So that's a change since I saw you guys last time.
The big thing is that we're covering with our employees with the best healthcare possible. Very important.
I agree.
So thank you for that. Working hard on that. That's not an easy thing to do.
Not much change, workers' comp, H&H, life insurance, OPEB, we're at 69% funded, so that's still pretty good because there's quite a few towns that are really quite lower, so I'm glad we're trending in the right direction on that.
So what would be a good number for OPEB?
I asked that
What
before,
percentage?
and I think our consultants, I don't wanna say are hesitant to answer that, but there's not like a
There's no
magic number to
it's
reach.
not like
They said
50%.
we're in a good spot, because I did try to pin that down during either retirement board meetings or somewhere else.
More than just
Well,
the
it would
cost
be
of living.
Yeah, retirement board, wrong place. But OPEB, I think we're doing pretty well in.
That's good. Well, good information. Do we have any questions?
The Medicare Advantage plan, you had 117 retirees on. A sense of conception, but 171, is that spouses?
No, that's the increase in people that we had to move over. Or I should say it's not just because of process, it's because there's no other plan. So
Got it,
everybody, even the
okay.
people that were
So
like,
there were some people that were 117 people self-funded. There have been some 54 people that had been on the plan.
like some of the
already.
older plans, and they chose not to, which was fine, but
Okay.
Anthem made some changes where in the group market, we're offering those really older plans.
That's pretty complex.
Did any of the employees choose to go off the town's plans entirely when
Only,
it went on Medicare Advantage?
only a couple.
I know I
They-
would have had to if my husband were still living. because of the things that aren't offered on even for guests, but. I was wondering,
Everybody, we've had really good responses anecdotally, I'll say, at the meetings that we
Yeah.
have for retirees of how it's going for them, which is a plus.
Yeah, I think that when I worked for the state, that was one of the biggest benefits, and this goes way back years and years ago. The retirement and the pension were the things that really made me want to work.
Yeah.
In our town, to the point of interest, when we go to hire people, they are covered in a proper manner where even as they retire, they have a good plan to be offered. When you
Yes.
include the spouse in the plan,
that makes it more
yes,
attractive.
very much so. So, once again, Director Green, thank you for that piece of information, because I think it's something that we all need to be able to share with our, constituents now. Because we do have a good quality of
We're
employment
hiring,
here.
yes, yep, and we're
Right,
hiring.
exactly right. And I know we have openings for positions.
Yeah, what are you hiring for? What do you most need right
CDL drivers, so if you guys wanna get your CDL,
now?
so
I actually
that's-
used to have my CDL. I did not make it.
I know that's one that we have a couple of openings for, and then the others are one-off, we don't have a ton that are all the same title, but I know that's big. Engineers are tough to fill, but we did find some, so that's great for us.
Mechanical engineer.
Oh. I don't,
Civil
structure,
engineers.
thank you, I was gonna say structural, but I think it's civil.
Because they want to do both. They don't want just one. You gotta be multi-talented.
Oh, yeah.
leaders.
It was a while though, but we have that filled, we just finished posting a couple of telecommunicators, so we have this a smattering, but the one I would say the most right now is CDL. And I think a lot of towns are looking
I have one question. There's no conversion from state to federal license, is there?
for CDL.
Yeah, for certain disciplines of work, like, when I went to work, I had a military license to
Mhm.
drive. And when I came out, and it's the same thing, like when I got certified, by federal, certified mechanic. There's all federal regulations, and they
Mhm.
were unconvertible to a lot of job qualifications.
I don't know if DMV would convert to it, but for
No,
us.
but you understand what I'm saying. There are two different
Yeah.
levels of education
Mhm.
and certification. So I think part of the problem is that if you were able to convert those into just a one-time test
Mhm.
and move on, because if you've done the work for 20 years and you're in the military and you don't have the license, you should be able to drive if you've been driving around, 20-ton trucks. It's just, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's, well, we talk to the people above us for that. No, I do, and I try to express that to people, because that was something that I went through, as I went through my
Mhm.
career. I always ended up with a federal license, not the state license.
I don't think I've seen anybody come with a federal, so either they've switched or they've gotten the Connecticut ones, so I haven't gotten that.
Well, we don't have a lot of military people who work for the town. State agencies, but not so much. That's a little off. Any other questions? Representative Umbers, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I need somebody to move a number, please.
I move 12,397,708.
Second.
Okay, seeing more questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, any abstention? Okay. 0-0.
See you next week, I think.
Yes, you will see you we'll see you in the main room soon.
Yes, big time.
Thank you so much, Director. Green.
Thanks to see
Appreciate
you.
your time and energy.
Well, thank you all.
Have a wonderful evening.
I was gonna say, you want the beverage chair? Yes.
I'm gonna take a 2-second break here.
All right, see ya.
Yeah. Thanks.
Better view. Not you.
Remember, whatever you say, Tom. Use that thing.
So I'm gonna stick this in here. I didn't realize that, but I moved.
The only thing is bonus.
There's
What's that?
that. Is that,
Well, of course, whatever you're spending, it's too much. It doesn't matter how you got the number. It was
I
10
think we're
times.
talking
as
general.
much.
Yeah, we're just recording.
Oh, you are recording?
No, that it is currently,
Yeah.
unmuted and recording.
we can't be saying secret stuff.
So, hi, what's your name? I'm Liz Spellman. Hi, Liz Spellman. You're the new IT person? I am, the new IT director. I'm so excited. How long have you been in the role? I was hired in February 2024 as a systems administrator. Okay. I was the acting director starting mid-May when Jay May left. And I officially took the role into July, beginning of August. Okay. Where do you come to us from? I worked for 7 years for a managed services provider out of. So I'm sure you're familiar. I've heard that you're rather tech savvy. For everybody else, they managed service provider does IT for other businesses. So where you're. Well, I'm hopefully. I've got a good amount of experience, large variety. Including 3 other municipalities. Do we call you Director Spellman?
Yes,
You can call me.
that's what we
Liz.
call
That's what we call it. I just want to make sure. Okay, yeah.
it. Try to be formal, with this piece. The rest of it is okay.
Yeah, I just asked.
Bring it. Yes.
I had a note here that had written down, actually, it was not for me, but for you. And under cost center 3, post-employment benefit, it's under the code 1071. But it says, the note is that it says 10 million, oh, I guess decrease in funded liability. Does that make?
You should have
We
asked
should
that.
ask that.
Was that?
We can ask that question when we have our meeting. Al, I can't give you an answer to that because I'm not the director of that department.
Well, this is, it's under 107Y, but it's, okay, you're just at IT, not the other.
We're done with that
Yeah,
piece.
yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay. Great. Oh, very
Well,
good.
you did fine. You just should have asked for Director Green's.
Okay. So
Okay.
what are we moving on?
Okay, sorry for the delay. We're on information technology. It's on page 70. It's account 1011. This is our new director. Just, we have an overall increase in this budget, so.
We have an overall increase of approximately 10%, 4.7% increase in personnel. The majority of that increase comes out of the operating budget. The utilities are increasing temporarily for year 2026 while we run concurrent utilities, cutting over one service to another, and that is going to save the town approximately $50,000 over the 5 years. So we should see a decrease in the utilities cost from what we paid last year. 5261 software maintenance fees. There were a handful of pieces of software that were not budgeted for that should have been budgeted for in financial year 2025, including our ticketing system and our remote support software. And the most expensive item is some hardware support that was up for renewal, which was unexpected. We did add some new software that we're adding into the budget. We used some security funding to purchase CrowdStrike to deploy across the town. So we've replaced an antivirus product with an endpoint detection and response product with the operations center. Keeping an eye on our network 24/7. With the landscape, cybersecurity landscape these days, really it's more for the town, make sure that. I use Gap, that's true. I'm not gonna.
They've had their issues, but, you know,
Yeah.
it has given us the ability to get some licensing and.
Yeah.
Let's see, 5290 has about a $15,000 increase, and that's because the VoIP phone system costs budgeted for last year. What I've budgeted for this year is approximately what that brings that back. So it's a 10% increase, but part of it is temporary, and then part of it was just items that were missed.
How do you prevent missing items for next year? Is the problem that in IT things move so rapidly that you can't all listen?
I believe that these items were missed due to turnover in the department.
I
Uh,
wonder.
Yeah, I believe the previous director came in right at the start of budget season before
Yes,
he
he
had
did.
time to all the
Formulate his
documentation
budget.
together.
Yeah,
I've been there since February, so I've had a chance to look at all of the documentation. I believe that I've accounted for everything. I found the spreadsheets that Ryan used and built on that and built on what Jay had. So I believe I've accounted for everything.
yeah, I just was curious.
Turnover is the answer.
Yeah, I was afraid that was. Is there anything, you seem very confident and therefore are likely to get a job somewhere else. I hope that whatever you do, you will leave
Doors.
clients
So,
for other people to pick up and for next year.
for what it's worth, I looked specifically for work in the municipal sector
Okay.
when I left my life. I have no plans of going anywhere.
You like the good health.
I like the health insurance, I like the pension. And, you know, I might be able to take double somewhere else in the corporate world, but it's not.
Okay. I believe you. I worked in the corporate world for years.
Not very appropriate. You had a career before you ran this.
My
I
question
do.
is, you,
Hold on, please.
it sounded like when you were going through the software maintenance, you talked about some
And they were going to take
Hardware,
care of Cradle to Grave, and then they
maintenance or
pushed us
hardware
into-
support. Can you break out the hardware versus software? And is the hardware primarily, oh, guys, hold on. One sec. Could you break out the hardware versus software? And it's okay if you don't have it. Meaning, and how much of the hardware costs are associated with site versus?
For the most part, our servers are generally under a third party warranty, which is significant. That's what I can get done.
No idea the language you're speaking, but I'm sure that it's good language. Like I said, when I first met you, Emily understands this piece of our budget. And I have the utmost confidence in the two of you to be able to figure this all out for our town. So, thank you. Representative Gardner.
Yes, Director Spellman, did you mention it was a $1,500? We were under budget for telecommunications.
15,000 for
Okay.
professional services.
Right, because it looks, maybe I'm not interpreting it right. It looks like 2025 adjusted was 39,868. We actually came in at 54,895, right?
It's 5290 professional technical services. 2024 was 57,273. 2025 adjusted for the budget was 41,685. What I actually spent was 60,703 for that. So adjusted financial year 25 was what was passed as the budget, and then estimate is projections for what we're going to end up spending.
Were you talking about
5290?
you were talking 5290, but you're talking about
Page.
Yeah, 10,170.
72.
oh, you're talking 10,117. He was talking 10,117.
This
Telecommunications.
10,117 is the town void telephone.
Yes, so 53,506. Financial year 25, what was budgeted was 39,868, and what I spent is 54,895. So there's 55,800 is the estimate for financial year 2026.
Okay, so that increase of 1,000 is for regular
Yes.
anticipated
yes.
inflation.
And if you look at 24, it was like 25.
Right.
Right.
And then drop down
For whatever reason.
for whatever reason.
Oh, it makes more sense.
Miscalculation on planning.
Yeah.
I believe that the miscalculation was a misunderstanding in the way that we divide that cost up, because some cost does go to probate, some cost goes to the golf course. So the bill does get split, and so I think there was a misunderstanding in what share of the bill.
That all goes back to the general fund anyway. Whatever gets billed out, it's not getting billed out by your department. Back to your department, it goes through accounting, right? The finance,
I'm not sure how the funds are allocated as
okay.
far as probate court.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
golf
asking,
fund
yeah.
are. I can't speak to
yeah,
how anything is done.
yeah.
above
I'll
the
ask,
budget
I can
report.
ask that question.
Why has the GIS revenue totally dried up? Is that we're just offering free, something different we should be doing there where we're investing?
So that was a miscalculation. I didn't realize that I had. By the time I realized that.
I mean, it's
was
not
too late
much.
to make the
I was
adjustment.
just wondering, okay,
So it was unintentional and due to inexperience.
all good. Sorry to bring it up.
No, that's fine. I'm
Thank
happy
you
to
so
answer the questions.
Later, she answers.
Yes.
I'm glad, keep asking.
If you don't own up to your mistakes, you don't build trust.
Right. Absolutely.
So in my head, I can add $200.
No.
It's always an estimate, but
Hey, it's a good
that might be
estimate.
safe.
Yeah. I can just do 124.
You're terrible. You're chiseling now. She's trying to make you laugh. See if you can get your ears to turn red. Wait. No, sir. Mine turn red all the time. Is there any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Representative Rich, do you have a question?
No.
You sure? Representative Pulaski?
Not this time.
Gardner?
I'm good.
Representative Umbris, any questions for our new director here?
Not at this time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, seeing no questions, I'll ask Norman to move this number.
Is my number 1466?
Yeah.
I move $1,460,900.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, there you go. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we're on to the next. Technology and replacement funds, page 74, it's account 6050. This is what's used. That's trouble. Oh, we make mistakes. Have to pass up to them. Get large deduction. Right?
I don't think I have anything to take you at, just your book.
That's what I mean, somebody's tricking me, I always gotta pay attention.
Okay. That's right.
Okay, there's no real increase in purchase fund, could you just speak to the increase, please?
So there's a 19.2% increase in this budget, and it's just because we're replacing some tough books this year. We have a higher count of devices that are being replaced this year. More workstations, less printers. I also do expect. I got the most recent quote I could for equipment in order to develop this budget, but I'm not sure if that's something that the best I can. The tough books that we're purchasing for the police department, we did purchase those refurbished. That will save us the cost of putting in new mounting hardware into old existing cars. Because these particular models are no longer produced new. I do expect they will be able to last here, like, even though they're refurbished.
And so that doesn't come from the general. It says.
So it comes from the computer replacement fund.
Okay. So this is gonna.
So the computer replacement fund, we track what devices are allocated to what departments. And then funding comes in from, the general fund or whatever associated fund that department comes out of into computer.
From their account.
Based on how many devices they have, the cost of the device, and then the replacement cycle.
So here's where where is it here? I actually asked this at the last meeting, but they were not here. Right now in the technology replacement, you have 3 times the amount sitting there already that you need to pay, like you have like 3 years of, why should we put in another year from the general fund to replenish that when we have like basically a 3-year thing?
The hardware on replacement cycles ebbs and flows. So the idea is to fund it based on the average cost for replacement. So that we can
Like the
absorb the
reevaluation.
costs of the high years and.
Sure.
you know,
But when
refill funds
are
for
the
low
higher?
years.
When do you think a higher will happen? Because these look pretty consistent.
I can get you that projection.
Yeah.
And we can.
Yeah. Because
we can
otherwise,
look at that.
I may propose that we don't put
Fund it
100K in from the general fund and have you draw it down on your fund.
Get the numbers.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
314,000.
Where did you see the 350?
Page 49.
Okay, let's go to 49 real quick, so everybody understands this. Page 49, it's in the front of the book.
Yeah.
Technology replacement fund. Okay,
Yeah.
fund balance is 314.
Maybe at the end it's 316,000 right now. That's what I'm saying. Draw down on that. With the
Instead of putting
96,000.
the 96
Instead of-
into it. Is that, what kind of impact would that have on the overall look of what you're doing? That's, I think, what Emily's trying to say.
I don't want to cut her budget at all.
No, I wanna know, look, we're not cutting your budget, I wanna know how does this work? Because we looked at the reevaluation fund, we do finances, we kind of get what you're doing. It's just, if it went to 0, because someone may put up 0, what would it do to this fund? How
I'll
would it
have to
impact it?
ask finance.
Okay,
I haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of how they calculate what they need to maintain as far as the balance of the fund.
Yep.
So I only gave them the contributions based on the devices we have.
Right. To be clear, I wouldn't zero out this. I would cut 98,000 from the finance budget and say that they should.
Remove the source is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'd want you to pull down on your.
I can take a look at, I'll get the numbers over the next 3 years as
I
best
think
as
it's
I
helpful to let
can.
someone know what you intend to do.
well, I think what they intended to do, at least when they set up the fund, if I recall, and I don't know, you weren't around when I was, they had to dust me off to
Yeah.
wake me up, okay? But I thought that that's what we were doing each year, because it's kind of like a replacement fund.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this much because this is done, the 5-year window's up. we're gonna
Oh,
put
I
in
think
this
that,
much.
I think.
And
we
if we
should-
don't, if we do just do the average, we always have the fund balance in there to pay for the stuff that we need, because the technology changes so fast.
Yeah.
That if you don't have it, it's still gonna come out of contingency.
I'm
or
saying
capital
that
reserve.
fund has built up, and so in a year where taxes are gonna go up considerably, do we actually need that fund, or do we draw down?
But then-
Do we expect the costs are going to go up to?
Yeah, that's my,
tariffs?
that's a very.
And we really
valid
don't know the
point. Yes.
impact yet.
That's why I'm asking my question.
So- So I am anticipating a rise in cost of equipment. But I believe what we're asking right now is not to cut the technology budget, but to draw from the technology that fund
Yes.
instead of the
Yeah.
general fund, so.
She might be asking you if what you wanna do is actually buy 2 years worth for this year to avoid a
That
sharp
might be true
increase next
too,
year.
yes.
That's kind of why we're on this subject for as long as we are, because because the projection on what you're doing is gonna amplify what we're trying to accomplish by having this long discussion. To be
So-
honest with you.
For what I'm looking at, I'm at least going to try and buy the hardware as early in the year as possible, as I can. And try and get a PO together July 1 if I can, get the equipment ordered, but as to what's gonna happen a year from now,
Nobody knows.
no
Nobody
one knows.
knows.
So I don't necessarily think it's worth investing in 2 years worth of hardware when, if we're deploying it next year, it's already a year old. It's
Of
better
course,
to
yeah.
purchase the next generation equipment.
Great
Uh,
answer.
You're telling me you might need a lot more.
I'm not sure how it's gonna be.
We'll find out together.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get those numbers and
It's
see.
exciting, but
Who
not
am I
happy.
on?
And,
We're
and
gonna work at it.
I'll get the estimates based on what
Yeah.
I've.
It's good to know if you have a big like bump here. Like if there is a
Yeah.
year that you actually spent $300,000, it's very helpful. And I'd be less likely to push the drawdown than if you're always spending $100,000.
Right.
So you just
Yeah.
have this like account.
Yeah, we'll take a look
Great.
Absolutely.
We definitely don't wanna not stay current with the way things are attacked through security and cybersecurity and
Yes.
technology, because we become a very vulnerable target in town. I think people around me have surrounded me with good people on this committee to ask, I think, specific questions, and 10 years ago, your department would have been not nearly as efficient as it is now with these numbers.
So if you pay someone, I mean, with this stuff, if you pay someone $75,000 in a year that work, why are you paying?
Right?
This is true.
So, thank you. I'm sure you'll get back to us before May 1st or whenever we have you as our account.
I believe it's May. Either the first or the fifth, one of those days is me, one of those days.
Yeah, I'm glad you haven't been saving money on security.
Yeah, no, that's one of the first things. Hey, thank God, that's,
Absolutely.
okay. We have any other questions?
I have a question related to the changes that are made, and I'm not sure if this is the place to look at it, but right now, they estimate fund balance says at the end of the year, 23.73. But it's, I think we have to have 25%.
20.
It's 20,
What's
okay,
20?
good.
Okay, so
So
we're
we're a
in
little
the
bit
green
slightly
range.
ahead. Now, I just want to know if this relates to the questions that came up previously, where the original budget included 5 million out of funds, the funds that we carry, to help us keep from raising prices significantly. And they changed it down to 2 million, which means they kept the fund that's $1 million higher than they had previously.
We're having this question. You need to ask your question about.
Well, the
IT
question
features.
Is this number, and I tried to get an answer last week. I realized,
She doesn't know that number.
well, you
It's
have
not her
the
job to know
number
that
in the
number.
budget, proposed fund balance 26 of 44,600,000. And in 25, we had an estimated current balance of 53,600,000. And now all of a sudden, well, that may be a little high, but nobody has ever once clarified to us exactly why the adjustment from 5 million that they were help fund the budget, and to 2 million. And that cost us an decreases in the education fund and other trigonometric things that.
Now, this
people
isn't
were
the
talking-
place for this question yet. We went through this the other
No, I
day.
didn't get the answer.
Because you're not listening. This is a person
I
that's
am
doing
listening.
IT.
We're
She
talking
doesn't do
about tech
finance the
stuff,
way that you
but
want.
right now, this is the one place that carries the number about the fund balance of for for the entire town.
This is not what we're talking about, Al.
Okay, I know it's not,
Well, then why are we talking about it?
because I'm asking you the question if you know what it was intended to be.
She doesn't know.
If this matches what,
It doesn't match it.
okay, so you don't know, why they cut, this and added to that and so forth.
Does she
And,
know
and we have
who's
to
the right
vote on
person
these
to ask?
issues, on the end of this month. And we have to vote.
How is she gonna know what the fund balance is gonna be by cutting her department? She's not gonna know. She's not the director of finance. That's Dee Morrison. Director Morrison is the one that does finance.
Well,
Okay, and she's not gonna have the number until we're done with
it
the
doesn't
budget.
matter, the people who are on the RTM have to vote on virtually all things at the end of the day.
Of course we do, Al, and her job is IT. Understand, like, her job is
Yes,
this
I'm
budget in
not-
the category that we're in. You're
don't get me
asking her a
wrong,
general
asking her
question
that.
about the budget, the finances of the entire budget. You're not asking her a question about what she's directing us
No,
in what
I-
she's doing for
I realize
technology.
that. But here again, there it is, sitting in front of ourselves, to look at when we're analyzing whether to approve this thing. I'm for it, I'm gonna vote yes, that's the thing, I just would like an answer. I think a lot of other people, not necessarily on the RTM, or working for the town, that wanna ask that question. So, let's go on. I don't wanna be a pain in the neck.
Okay,
But
we're
I
on,
think the answer matches.
we're on account 6050 on page 74. You have any further questions? Representative Umros.
No questions.
Seeing no questions, I'd ask someone to move this number, please.
I move 98,390.
Second.
Great.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays. Okay, we're on to CIP 7. It's found on under the technology section. It's A on page 246.
CIP 7A is the CIP that allocates money for infrastructure upgrades, whether it be data center upgrades or service upgrades. This year, we're requesting 135,000. The majority of that is going to go towards upgrading the town's 365 light. Sorry, was it one?
Yeah, 150
Yes,
for
150.
this year.
I'm looking for 135 last year.
Yeah, you're good.
So 150. The majority of that is going to go towards the Office 365 licensing. Along with that, should productivity software like Teams. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is the ability to respond to FOIA requests. So having the framework to gather information from any productivity platform is crucial. But along with upgrading our licensing, we get better, we get more up-to-date software with the Microsoft Office suite, and we can use tools like Microsoft Planner. We can use tools like OneDrive to be able to share content on the fly and work remotely. It's not necessarily a replacement for our entire file infrastructure, but there are a lot of applications. We are also budgeting for any switches that come up that need replacement, and a handful of battery backups that are more cost effective to replace than to renew the support on.
You know, you've only been here a short period of time. You're able to look at the whole plan that we're funding for the next,
I've been
how many years?
Oh,
31.
So I've been looking through it and I've been making adjustments here and there, but I haven't had time to read the entire plan. Most of what I've been doing is looking at our architecture and seeing where we have significant gaps and we really need to make some changes.
Well, that's good. I don't expect an answer. I can't expect you to be a world leader today or tomorrow. And, you know, if this is the right amount of money, just continue with what we're doing. I think all of us will be happy to approve that. I can't say for everyone, but I will myself approve it. Vote yes for it if you think that this plan is gonna work. If we have to adjust it, I'm sure we'll hear a review from this.
We'll review every year.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
the overall package is on the bottom here, and
Yes,
it's, you know, it's $1 million.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
So that's the reason on that. Yes, and no.
Can you talk to me why the Microsoft Office licensing is part of the CIP and not part of ongoing licensing like annual?
So part of the cost is professional services to help us implement it in a way that's not disruptive and in a way that'll be most productive. Including setting up policies on our infrastructure, manage certain aspects.
So is there some portion of Microsoft Office that's in the software maintenance budget? Or is it all sort of sitting here? Or will it add to the software?
It will add. It will reduce some CIP costs as we won't be refreshing our Microsoft Office every 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Volume licensing purchases. It will cost a little more than the method that we've been using so far, but it will give us better product.
And talk to me about, you probably got more notes gonna ask questions about hardware and the on-prem backups and like what percentage of the 150,000 is going towards sort of hardware replacements and like what do you think?
So the money that's being allocated this year, very little of it is going towards any hardware replacement. I know that you're a big proponent of the cloud. I've taken a look at Groton's infrastructure, and I believe that there are opportunities for us to save some money in some areas. But
I don't think it has to be everywhere. I just don't think it needs,
yes. But it doesn't always work out, you know, in town's favor financially necessarily. When you lift and shift infrastructure without taking into account the workloads, dollar for dollar, the cloud costs more. We're looking right now at migrating our Tyler technology software, Municipal, and EPL, the permitting software, to the cloud. And let's see, they're estimating approximately $100,000 increase in our switching costs. So our licensing right now will double. I did actually average out the CIP infrastructure, CIP, over the last 4 years and what I'm requesting for this year. Yeah. It averages approximately $146,800.
what average.
If the CIP costs year over year since financial year 2022 for technology 7A. We have about 40 virtual servers. So if all of the money in 7A went towards supporting those servers, that breaks down to $3,600 per server, $3,670. 7 of those servers are Tyler Technology servers. So that equates to $25,690 per year. So to run on-prem, it's costing us approximately $125,000. We move to cloud hosting, they're quoting us $200,000 annually. And that's only if 7A went all towards managing the server infrastructure, which it doesn't.
I think part of my question, a lot of these, and you may disagree with what the last person said, but his point was, we both have it, we have like these duplicates, and so we already have it in the cloud. We have an online backup, and then we also have it on these servers. Other pieces, like they're in a basement, we're gonna have to move them out of the basement to avoid flooding and all these other pieces. And I was like, why are we doing this if this also exists in the cloud? This feels like a real waste to continue to invest in these things that could potentially get flooded.
And so what we have in the cloud is just a backup. It's not something that we could click a button and make into functional servers. It is just files that we can use to restore down to infrastructure.
If there was a flood in the basement.
Yes. Yeah. We have on-premise backups and cloud backups. We have cloud backups because it's recommended that you have cloud backups as well as local backups. Local backups are a lot faster to restore from. We also utilize tape backups so that we can store them offsite, which you hear tape and you think archaic backup systems, but
My
it's
VCR.
In some ways, it's coming back into vogue, honestly, because they're hard to get to.
tape isn't necessarily a bad option these days because
Yeah.
that can be stored and it's immutable. Once you have that tape backup, once it's offsite, no one can edit it. You know, we lock it in the vault.
Right.
So our cloud backups, not necessarily immutable. Our local backups, not necessarily immutable. Even with immutable backups, if it's only a software level of immutability, if somebody cracks your system, they can delete them. And there's people who say that they can protect against that, but local
The hackers are
offline
always
backups-
one step ahead of us, always.
local offline backups are definitely a bonus.
You know,
The 9,600 that we're spending on backups right now, we're not even doing full VM level backups in the cloud. It's just file, and
So it'd be a
SQL
pain.
backups in the cloud. Yes, I am looking at options for different backup providers to get a sense of what value I can bring in, or like the best value for the dollar for taxpayers. I'm not satisfied with our current level of backup.
Teaching me stuff like, you know, having about this much. Not gonna be about that much.
So
Every year you grow.
the long and short of it is, I'm trying to make sure that if someone breaks into our network and breaks everything,
Yeah.
I have a way to put things back, even if that way takes a little longer. You know, if they're really good at cracking everything,
Yeah.
there's still something we can do.
We have to worry about that, because the school board got it.
Well, no, I know, but you also have to worry, like, I worry about on-prem servers in the basement, right? Because we aren't a town that is particularly.
Okay,
So-
didn't we go up there, didn't we all take a tour up there? Didn't we see all these things in the police station? Who went with me on that? With all
Well, the
the,
police station is one of the data centers.
right, and I saw exactly what you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's up on the hill.
Yeah, I got it.
Interesting note, we're not currently funding the town-wide fiber network as we're assessing our options now that Frontier has run a bunch of fiber and there's services available through CDN that may be comparable. So dollar for dollar, we're going to run that comparison, but for now, we're reducing our interconnectivity overhead by moving from the dark fiber that we're provided to a service provider. We've assessed the bandwidth needs at each site and priced out each site accordingly. And so that gives us the flexibility to be able to move the data center to another building if we do want to do that, and not end up in a bind because everything terminates in the basement. Yeah. So.
I have heard that Verizon may be purchasing Frontier. I don't know if that would affect your decision-making at all in any way.
The pricing that we get is on state contract, so there is a ceiling.
Okay, so that's.
When I lived in Newark, New Jersey, fiber, your business for $99.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that business?
All
fiber
because
with
it was
SLAs?
city fiber, right? On like Audible and Amazon paid for it to run. So the city is part of like being Audible being headquartered in Newark. Yeah. That's a dream.
That was the
dream.
That was a jackpot place, huh? Well, I've become very intellectually astute at a few things tonight that I never really grasped.
Yeah, I've got to say that as someone who suffered a ransomware attack some 15 or 20 years ago, the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. The idea of having everything that tape that the ransom bandit can get at, as it's appealing, but.
Actually, that is an interesting question. When you I know you upgraded to CrowdStrike. Have you thought about security-wise running any kind of bug bounty programs? And if you're not familiar, you can go into what that is.
So, yeah, right now we're utilizing vulnerability scanning provided through CISA to
Okay.
keep an eye out. I don't necessarily think the bug bounty is the way to go,
Okay.
as known vulnerabilities will be identified. We get
Cause
reports.
you're not doing a lot of your code creation.
Yeah, it's, there's nothing we're hosting and exposing to the internet that is homegrown.
That's
anything-
really sensitive.
But yeah, we are keeping an eye on, our publicly exposed services. I have through the MSI stack, CISA provides free external vulnerability scanning on all your domains. Basically what that is they'll probe all of your buildings to see if they can get into your network. If there's, well, that's an oversimplification. They'll see if there's
Yeah.
anything that's vulnerable, that they know is vulnerable, something that you haven't updated or patched, and they'll say, hey,
Yeah.
you gotta fix this. So,
I'm
Do you
glad you're
handle
there.
the IT?
Important, because we had a lot of that, a lot.
Do you
I know that.
handle the IT departments for the schools?
I do not, but I am building a good relationship.
Because I'm having watched, having been a early victim of ransomware, I watch schools and hospitals seem to be #1 easy targets
Because they don't
for
spend the
these
money.
jerks, because they don't spend the money. So I'm hoping that in some way, at least in the security angle, you could have a good influence on them.
So when it comes to cybersecurity, you have to be right every time.
I know.
The bad guys only have to be right once. When you manage a network that includes, it's a school district. There's kids on Chromebooks
Well,
doing.
exactly. I don't, it's a
What?
nightmare,
So-
the idea of keeping a school cyber secure scares the devil out of me.
We gave them the Chromebooks.
I don't want to say too much, but from what I've heard of what had gone on, no concerns with the ability of their.
That is good to know. That's good
Great.
to know.
Thank you.
I have one more question. You're good.
It's all right.
This,
Look, we're
this
here for
is
this.
this 150, unlike the rest of the money in the future, comes from an other fund. Where does this come from?
So
Yeah, I remember.
I am not 100%, it says under it, other CIP fund balance.
Was that, do you think that's not spent CIP, like a balance from prior year? What do you think, John?
I'm guessing.
I'm not
maybe
gonna
I-
answer that because
Yeah,
it's,
maybe
look,
that,
we're
yeah,
we're
you
gonna
can
get
have
an
an
answer.
Or the town manager
Right,
will be
right.
there to answer that.
He'll ask
Yeah.
that question.
Yeah,
again.
Yeah, I'm not sure, other than what it says at the bottom. of the
Right.
CIP. Okay.
Other
That's fine. You're
CIP
like, I'm
fund
worried about
balance is
this,
where it
not
comes
this.
from.
Well, I'm interested in all of it, honestly.
Okay.
Well, that's
I'm curious
good.
mine.
Yes. I think we're all interested in all of these a lot more
I mean,
than.
we're probably spending
Right.
more time just because we're curious.
Well, it's
And me, I have this recurring dream where I do what I did 20
Please.
years ago, woke up in the middle of the night to hear my computer playing something that sounded like the hamster dance and was demanding that I send it Bitcoin, and what is that,
Oh, we're not sending Bitcoin yet. Okay, do we have any other questions? Representative Fritchie, do you have a question on this subject? Representative Gardner?
I want to ask 3 questions about tapes, but they're not germane to the budget, so. hold them for later.
Representative Umbris, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask someone to move 150,000.
No, I'll move 150,000.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Need a vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right? No opposed, no abstentions, that passed 6-0. All right, on to page 247. Enterprise Resource Planning.
Be transparent, I have not adjusted the projected funding. I'm still reviewing the IT and public safety master plans to determine where this money was being allocated. So in lieu of not funding it, I left the original projection.
in that it's public safety and the plan hasn't been reviewed by the director. This will ask for a vote on 50,000. In our budget book. How do we feel about 250,000, but when it hasn't been addressed yet? Do you think you'll be able to get to this
It's,
between
I
now
mean,
and when we have our
I can
meeting?
see that it's for user training,
Yeah.
which is intended to be for the software that we use, likely Munis, which we're going to need coming up when we're moving to the cloud and onboarding HCM, once I start that project again, which is in the works. I'll talk about that on the next CIP.
Okay,
And it's also for developing policies and procedures in IT. So that is money that won't end up being unused.
Representative Pritchett, you had a question on this?
No.
No,
I will do my best to get as much
No, that's
information
fine.
as I can.
been here 2 months. Maybe you're doing great. Trust that you'll give the money back if you're not spending it correctly. That's my, I'm a trustful person. You really do a lot.
You are not a trust. I love your critical mind.
But it's only because I have.
Yeah.
I trust you until you prove me wrong. Okay, I start off with trust and you prove me wrong,
Trust
okay?
and verify.
Exactly, right, that's how you do things. That's how I do.
Never forget. I dislike the thought of trying to find things to spend money on at the end of the year. Hate spending
Right.
money.
That's good, so it will be returned if it's not used. Okay, I feel more comfortable with that response.
Yes.
That's what I will vote for 50,000, knowing that it's in good.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So we anticipate more learning needed next year than going forward. Budget drops pretty significantly from 2027 on.
So I believe that the money for this year and the previous year were intended to assist with the deployment of the Tyler product and extra user training required as we migrate from old systems to new systems.
I feel like that. That's a chair.
I'll talk about that at the next
You're-
CIP if you'd like. Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Okay.
well, we
We'll
gotta
give you
take care
2
of
weeks
this
to
one.
figure it out.
Well, we gotta vote on this one.
Well, do
Right.
you want to do the other one first?
No, I don't. I wanna
Okay.
do this one and then we're gonna, we just can't stop to go here to go back. That way. We wanna put another number on the table, then we put another number on the table, okay? Not, I'm gonna ask someone to move this number. $50,000. Have a second? Sure, why not? Okay. First and I second it. Move the number. Okay, it's gonna go to a vote. Any other questions? Representative Umbris?
No questions.
Thank you, sir. Okay, put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No, I was an eye. That
Oh,
was just
okay.
a quiet eye.
Quiet eye. Tom? Yea or nay?
Aye.
Al? Yea or
said
nay? Aye?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm tone deaf at the moment. All right, that passes 6-0 to 0. With the caveat that we have a good director. Okay, we're on to enterprise information, yes.
So
48.
I understand that migrating the human resources module has been put off multiple times. What has temporarily held it so far over the last 4 months has been discussions with the Board of Ed over integrating them into Munis. I understand that they've had a bit of a difficult budget season so far. And Munis is seemingly a lot easier to use than what they. So it makes more sense to migrate to the cloud and integrate the Board of Ed into financials, and then also currently run our migration together. We've been in a handful of meetings about this. We've done a preliminary review on the chart of accounts to ensure that we'll be able to bring them on board. I've talked to a few other towns about the things that went well, the things that didn't go well. And we're going to fully move forward with posting and bringing the board back. It means paying for a couple of pieces of software on the town side for an extra year than anticipated. But I think overall, this is the best way to spend the taxpayers' money. I believe initially the plan was for them to purchase their own Munis instance, but posting them together.
Cost
Less
saving?
expensive.
Yes. Very good.
That's a real budget.
Yes,
Saving money.
exactly, right. This is not just shifting
There
an
are
expense
pieces
from
of software
home
I
to
am
home.
gunning to cancel right now.
Great.
Okay, we'll keep that
I
under our
love saving money.
Until you decide.
Yes, do we have any
And this
questions?
again is that other, has a thing where it's like marked as other, so, confirm with the town manager at the next meeting. what that is pulling.
I'd just like to say, I love this idea, after reading their book and watching the town council budget. Number two, with Board of Ed, they need all the help they can get. And this is a cost-effective way to do it, so.
The more we can simplify things to be more secure when it comes to any of this type of technology, definitely. Whatever that service is gonna cost, because it's gonna cost more. If something happens before it's implemented,
Yeah,
the worse it's going to be.
the ransoms are typically in multiple millions. If you've ever watched how much they're spending.
If you have to pay.
Right.
If you
You
have
can't
to,
refund.
if you can't refund.
Okay. Representative Umbris, any questions?
Questions?
Yes. Yeah. Any questions? You're good, right? Okay. Al? Representative Fritzie? No? Okay, seeing none. All vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Oh,
Okay.
310,000. I move 310,000.
Well, wait a minute. Is that the right number?
Yeah, 'cause it's
Okay.
just this year.
I just want to be sure.
Thank you. I did not move the number here.
We're almost done.
There's just two there, the 60 and the 250, that's all.
I have newborn.
Your-
and I-
What is your, what's our age? 21?
I'm just
Quarter of a
saying,
century?
you can text me
Quarter
at
of a-
5, and I'll probably be there.
You need a nice.
I don't have.
Oh,
Everything.
no.
Sugar fix,
It
everything,
exists, I
candy,
see
you know,
where
I
Trump,
think I got a call.
it still exists.
Got one to go. Okay. Next budget item is found on page 249, it's IT security. Pretty much speaks for itself.
How's this different than the others? Like, you said you were, I think, doing CrowdStrike when we were in the annual budget, what is this 30,000?
So the CrowdStrike was pulled out of this CIP from a previous year.
Got it, okay.
So that is the kind of thing that the CIP funds. This year, it's mostly disaster preparedness, incident response plans, ensuring that we have a playbook for the worst happens. There's no hardware replacement requirements, no firewalls that are slated to be replaced. Budget is relatively low compared to the funding that came in.
For disaster preparedness, do you tabletop exercises, or you like, hey, like what is, yeah,
So first and foremost, I want to run business impact analyses for various departments to assess the importance of service restoration priority in place in case disaster strikes. You'd be surprised. You think public safety might be the very first thing you want to get online, but they have a lot of paper backups for their electronic systems. So they may be able to function without them longer than, for example, the finance department without the units. So assessing what is most important in town is step one. So we may or may not require outside resources with that. there's a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
So,
It is.
Well, we appreciate all of this because it's very hard to step in and have intelligent conversations where I understand things and the people that you're facing may not be nearly as technologically skilled in understanding everything. Presented very good cases as to why they hired you. You've been very thorough and actually, I told Emily, I grew from here to here tonight. And I'm looking to grow to here as, within the next few years that we're together doing this, because it's, yeah, I need all the help I
I know
can
that you're
get.
like 2 years, you're like, I'm going to spend my job.
Well, we're gonna try hard, how's that? Okay, we try to keep our people in the town working, because I'm a firm believer that the more you know, when I first came on to this RTM, we had people that have been 20, 25, 30 years, our finance director was 40 years. That knowledge carries on to all of us, for us to understand, to make proper decisions for the town. And that, I think you're providing the answers that we need, and everyone's here to see it, if they so choose to look, so.
That's right, because as you know, anybody can look at this meeting. And it stays there.
I watched 2024 and 2023
That's right.
meetings.
Oh, so that's
before
how
I-
you do it.
Isn't that a great
Yes.
resource?
It is. It is.
She examined the
fantastic.
buzzsaw
was- she
before
was-
she managed, okay?
Transparency as well.
Well, exactly
She
where
was
the
like, boom.
chinks were in the chainsaw.
I said,
Director
she'll act
Spellman,
with it.
Yeah.
Director Spellman, so, there currently is no real disaster recovery plan or disaster recovery.
There is, but I think it's insufficient in the knowledge that it provides and the strategy that's done. It definitely has a lot of valuable information in it. There is a plan. It's just desperately needed.
Will this fund be enough though?
It will.
Good question.
I do have a lot of resources that I've gathered from some of the organizations that we join as a municipality, the MSISAC. Dave Palmack from CISA has provided a lot of templates, and I took at the CEN conference last year, I did a panel on creating an incident response plan. So there's a lot of information out there. A lot of good ones.
I think the reason I asked this question is because, as I've explained to a lot of different people, like, we live in a very unique area, nuclear plants, the sub base, EV, Pfizer. We're the,
So you're saying we might get this disaster?
I think we're more apt to be better prepared if we have the right technology to.
I mean, I
to go
remember
through it,
9/11.
okay?
so-
Right, well,
Yeah.
we're not gonna talk about that. I felt that's the most secure I ever felt in my life, being in the 20 plus years of my contracting, when I worked with people, I worked with the defense state, military part. Worked in the nuclear industry, so I understand preparedness thing a little bit better than most of the public, because we were part of it.
I do want to clarify, this is for disaster preparedness in the event of a cyber incident.
That's what I'm saying, but even
Yeah.
so, I get, if that's all, you're right, and I thank you for the explanation.
What about flooding?
Yes, this is one of our flood things.
Flooding, I'll have to talk to facilities.
I just remember, so like Hurricane Sandy, for example, this is part of where I get my feet, is I had data stored in a basement with on-prem servers, and Hurricane Sandy hit, and I got flooded out and couldn't do anything. And so I'm like, well, damn, I just don't want the town to be in that situation.
So we have 2 data centers. One is at the police department and one is at the town hall. I am
Gonna move everything up the hill.
elbow deep in a project to change our hypervisors because of the VMware licensing increase. We won't have the capacity at the police department to host every single server that would be running at the town hall, but we will have the capacity to choose the most critical server, launch up there if the town hall. So
The shocking thing that happened in 2010 was we had all this rain. I don't know if you're in this area in 20. But March 28th, 2010, we had such catastrophic rain that a property that I owned that was 150 feet above the Thames River had 4 feet of water in the basement. And that's something I never expected to see in that property. So it gives me a deep fear of basements. The word basement can make me shudder.
I may be bringing forward a CIP 7 to move the town servers, but I need to.
You have a lot
What
going
is
on.
involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what goes on is when you have properties that are underlain by granite ledge, you have aquifers that run through the various weird cracks in the granite ledge, and you don't know where the water is gonna end up until somebody's basement's got 4 feet of water in it, that thought it would be dry as a bone because it was.
Hydrology, it's a.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky. I live on a hill too, and it comes out of the cracks in concrete. So-
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to realize that each different element to the environment created a different catastrophe.
That's right.
Okay,
Yes,
so-
there were no
and then-
free lunches
Correct.
here.
So we do the best we can with what we have at the time, and we make arrangements to prepare ourselves. That's what.
But in general, there's all kinds of things that can happen bad in the basement.
Good. Do we have any other questions? Being none, I'm gonna ask for someone to move the number. Do
$30,000.
we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no abstentions? Okay, that passes. I thank everyone for their time today in this meeting, and we've been blessed with a very intellectual conversation today when it comes to computers and human resources department, and I thank everybody for partaking in this committee. As always, see everyone at our budget session. Thank you and have a good night.
Yeah. But she knows how.
No, I don't.
Yes,
think she's
yes.
qualified. You have a license to do that or what? I only have a federal license, so I can't.